New episode of the Developers Podcast. We're kind of sporadic with this. A lot of the episodes this year have just been updates about the business, but this episode, I wanted to bring on Michael, one of my best friends. He's been with me since the beginning of the company. He is the ever elusive, behind the scenes, kind of in the dark. I go to him for really all advice. Like anytime I'm making a deal or making a decision on employment or just decisions on operations or sales, it's always him who I'm calling, and we're having great discussions. So technically he's like my I call him CFO. Sometimes he gets upset about that because he's like, no, I'm not the CFO yet. You don't pay me enough for that. No, but he's got his own accounting company called Blue Raven Accounting. He serves a lot of landscapers. He serves, a couple marketing companies. He serves me, most importantly, which I'm very grateful for. And the reason why I wanted to have him on is because over the last 2 years, I started this business about 3.5 years ago. Over the last 2 years is when we really put into play this saving, philosophy, and this philosophy around our money. And over the last 2 years, we've been able to save and put away into a separate account, over 6 figures in dollars. And, we started this business with no debt, no credit, no loans, straight bootstrapped from the beginning. And the reason why I wanted to have you is because I think there's so many people who mismanage their money and don't really understand the importance of having somebody like you on their team. We talk about it all the time. You're the Ray Lewis of the team. You're the defense of the team, and you have to have a good defense. And so, we've been friends for a long time. I met Michael when I was like 5 or 6 years old when I first moved to Vegas. So it's been about 25 years. We're both 30, both very close. And just kind of want to, I guess we can start by just, hearing really like your philosophy around what you do. You've been doing accounting for a long time. You've worked for different casinos and things like that in Vegas and different resorts. And you've had multiple different opportunities to grow and learn construction accounting as well in Montana. And now you have your own company. And I just think it's important that people really hear what the power is of what it is that you do. So yeah, just we can kind of hop into it, just like your philosophy around your role and what we do and how we go execute.
Shout out to Derek for the few minutes here. We just want to talk about this, and shout out to your Haven. We'll talk about just the general philosophy of money here, but I do have to just, tip my cap to your Haven, especially Derek. I'm the last person to say I'm a co-founder or anything, but just, being on the phone with him a lot when he was getting started up with limited amount of money and making, that money last, making the deposits that were coming in, it's not like these days where you can just get an AI prompt. It seems like you hook the Stripe up and then it's just like deposits start rolling in. At least that's what they're telling us on Instagram. But back then it was just very manual and
just plug in Cloud into your Stripe and you start making money, eh?
Exactly. Just say, hey, we have this client in Texas who has 3,000 square feet. Like, just shoot me out a design, and then there's the design. And like nowadays, right? Is that easy, or is
No, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, and but yeah, shout out to your Haven. And really, when it comes to building money, whether it's a 6-figure savings or whatever phase that you're in, it just comes down to discipline. And if you don't have discipline with your money right now, that's probably one of the hardest ones to obtain, but one of the easiest ones to keep. And credit to your Haven, especially earlier on, right? You're collecting these deposits, and as much as you would like to maybe go book a deep sea fishing trip to San Diego or go travel a little bit or spend that money and enjoy it, you really kept that money in house. I'm not here today to give away any numbers, but if you do look at the payroll, I mean, Mr. Cleland is probably one of the lowest paid people, on payroll. And so it just shows what you care about too, wanting to bring opportunity to folks. Right now, we're almost close to 100 team members, and it's an incredible feeling being able to watch payroll clear and just knowing how many people, well, at least just get fed for that payroll cycle, them and their families and everybody that's affected. And that's truly like when I operate in accounting, that's what I'm thinking about, right? We could talk about numbers and get them prepared, but it's what those numbers mean. It's what weight those numbers have. And, with your Haven, it's not even like we've been penny pinchers either. They've been very generous. And I don't want to say generous. Everyone has earned their opportunity and their pay with your Haven. But we've, said yes to a lot of things. I think the only thing and I know I'm a little off topic, Derek, but you are on a pod with me, probably expect that. But I was thinking about today, I think the only time we've said no to money going out for maybe one of the staff was when they asked to pay off their home.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of that comes from right back to the discipline, being able to have money on hand. Also, too, a lot of companies that unfortunately go under, right? There's that famous Shark Tank statistic where 9 out of 10 companies go under business or go out of business. And a lot of times it's just they don't have those finances bootstrapped. And so for me, I thought, I wanted to get into accounting because I was interested in stocks. I was living in Las Vegas at the time. It was really before that mobile, like remote working era too. This was 2017, 2018. And so I was interested in stocks first. I would listen to the Warren Buffetts, the Charlie Mungers, the Bill Ackmans, the Carl Icahns. I mean, Carl Icahn paid for a semester of school for me, by the way. If you're listening, you're probably not. One of the most successful activist investors or just investors of all time. I held just a few shares of Caesar stock, and he came in and forced them to sell it for twice the share price. So it was incredible. Thank you, Mr. Icahn. But that's what interested me in what got me interested in accounting, because to understand stocks or financials, you had to learn what that accounting was telling you. And I think the first whip in my head was when Warren Buffett was explaining, hey, when you're reading these financials from the public companies, do you even know what accrual basis means? When you look at the revenue line item, you're probably thinking, oh, this is the money that they earned for this period. But this is actually the value of the services that they delivered for the period. And so it just, little things like that would really, just have
speaking of accrual, that's how we've been able to save a ton of money on taxes every single year because you keep our books on an accrual basis rather than the cash basis. So exactly like what you said, instead of collecting the cash and it going straight to, revenue on the balance sheet, because the way our contract's set up and the way that we operate, it actually doesn't go to revenue until the service is delivered, which means it sits as a liability on the balance sheet, which means it's not actual, we can't get taxed on that, which is great. And because of that, last year doing almost $2 million, we had nothing to pay in taxes for that, which was fantastic. I just pulled up our Wealthfront account because I want to talk about the Wealthfront account first. And I don't know if this is right. I clicked all activity. I scrolled all the way to the bottom and it said our first deposit was February 20th, 2025. February 20th, 2025, $1,500. So in a year and 4 months, actually, we've been able to grow our Wealthfront account to over 6 figures in cash. Basically our savings account, right? In a year and a couple months. So why did you want us? Let's go back to that moment, because you're the one who said we should start the Wealthfront account. You're the one who said, hey, now's the time. What even is a Wealthfront account? Why did we set it up? And explain the difference between that and the operating account and really what your philosophy is behind that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And no, congratulations too. And congratulations to Zen as well. Hard work and right. The money just doesn't come out thin air. So, really taking care of obviously the capital that you have on hand. When I look at somebody's business checking account, I'm not thinking about their dreams or trust accounts or investments or real estate, or this is your Bitcoin investment or any of that nonsense, right? Or just the extra stuff. What I'm really looking at is your pending outgoing payments, your pending payroll, and your pending deposits. When I look at your business checking, that is what really, when you organize it, what it should consist of. And then you're able to look at your business checking as a gas meter, right? Because now that's really just there to operate your company. Now, having a savings account additional to that if you're lucky enough to have excess money, right? And a nice way to figure that out, and we do this here at Blue Raven Accounting, is we just take your beginning bank balance every day. We take your scheduled pending payments for the week, scheduled pending payroll, scheduled pending deposits. The net of all those figure gives us an accurate depiction of how much operating is available, right? How much
How
you
much
have.
cash you actually have.
Exactly.
Yes,
And
that's
so,
one of the
right,
best things. That's one of the best things that you do, and really actually a game changer. And I talk to so many companies about this when they ask. I tell them the best thing they could possibly do is exactly what you do for me. Is I wake up every morning and he sends me basically a cash on hand, Excel sheet that basically shows Monday through Friday, and again, my beginning bank balance, pending payments, pending payroll, and then incoming deposits. Net those out, and that's the actual cash we have on hand, which is incredible because then you make better decisions on spending, what you can spend, what you can't spend, what you actually have available, which, especially in construction and especially in landscaping, when you get those deposits. And I know this because from the landscape company, right, when I had the landscape company, I'd get $100,000 deposit. That money is not yours. And if you don't have somebody really outlining that, it can really put you in a tough spot, which is what I did. I put myself in a tough spot because then you're like, oh shit, I can go buy a new truck or I can go do this. But how much cash do you really have on hand after all the upcoming expenses that you have? So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. That's a very powerful thing that you provide and has, really set us up for success.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. And I wasn't in Albert Einstein coming up with it. That's what I was introduced when I first got into accounting, working for the legendary Derek Stevens down in Las Vegas. But it's just nuts and bolts. We weren't talking EBITDA multipliers, land rates, takeoff rates. We're talking about a billionaire here, like doing someone that, or what is a business that everyone would like to do, right? And so it's just very straightforward, and you're able to find out what you actually need in your checking account, right? When all those transactions are clearing, especially on some of those heavier weeks with payroll, maybe some outgoing payments, maybe you're paying out bonuses as well. You just know what you have on hand afterwards, and that will dictate what you could afford to transfer to the savings account. And what I like in the savings account, right? And I'm not here to talk about getting in at share prices and getting in at Bitcoin and dumping and tripling and doubling, those means not, it's like, oh, bro, you just got to triple it and then double it. What are you talking about? Like, we're not, we're just talking about an emergency fund, a savings with a higher interest rate. That way it can help keep up with inflation, right? And you can park your money in there. Just a lot slower moving account, right? If I'm looking at the business checking, that's like the front lines of war, House of Dragon fans, front lines of war, right? Everything colliding. And then what is left will get transferred to the high yield savings, a very slow, safe account, right? The door is always open for money to go in, but it should be very hard for the money to come out. And I say that figuratively, right? Because could you just log in and start transferring out money? Yes, but to have the discipline and the perspective of this account is like a heavy vault, and I need 2002 Brock Lesnar to come show up and open up the door so I can access the capital, right? And by the time you access the capital, you're just ripping the door open. Oh my gosh, using all the muscle. Brock Lesnar's like on your back. You guys are just ripping it, and bang, the door flies off. You're like, wow, I don't want to open up that bank account for another year, right?
Yeah.
And so, but at the end of the day, though, it's just something you got to work up to. To me, that business checking is just what comes first. You want to be able to pay your bills, collect your deposits, and get your payroll out. From there, it is an honor to be able to move excess money into that savings account. And, practice I like too, if you don't want to wait for excess money to calculate that, is maybe distributing every payroll. You have a set amount, right? Like that 1,500 that Derek mentioned earlier, and I'm not here to give numbers away, but that was, hey, every payroll, let's just put away a little bit of money, and then we set it and forget it. And by the time we hit October, we're in Coeur d'Alene, and it's like, hey, we have some money to distribute. Like, why
this is pretty much how it went, right? And that's how we set it up. We just said, hey, okay, just for now, as we start building this up, we started February 20th. We put $1,500 in there, and then we did that every 2 weeks. So every payroll period, we just set up an automatic deposit from Bank of America to our Wealthfront high yield savings account of $1,500 every 2 weeks. And we did that until looks like July 28th is when we made our next big deposit. We put a $10,000 deposit in there. That was probably, we had a really good month. And you said, hey, you know, he'll text me or he'll call me and he'll be like, hey, dude, the account looks good. Like, I'm super comfortable if you are. Let's throw 10,000 in there. Right? You do that all the time, right? You did that this morning actually about paying off our ramp cards. You're like, hey, let's do it. Right. So you're just kind of tracking it and you see the numbers, you see what's okay, and you say, hey, you know, and I think that's such a huge piece of having the team. I want to get to the team and I want to get to what our real goals are towards the end. But we'll keep going on the Wealthfront account. So when we had excess cash, we started throwing more in there. And then it looks like in August, we bumped it up to 2,500. So now we're doing 2,500 every payroll. And we did that for a while. And then in January of this year, we upped it to 3,500. And then we're doing 3,500 up to, every single payroll. And then, now we're, almost tripling that every single payroll into the Wealthfront account. And it's crazy how much it's stacked. Really, in a year and 4 months. It actually hasn't even been 2 years, a year and 4 months, right? You go do that for 10 years. Like, oh my gosh, that's insane. So you always talk about, again, the operating account being kind of the front lines, being at war, and then the savings account just being the place where, you can really focus on building.
Yeah. And even to add on to this too, Derek, which you'll probably really like, just being able, even if it's, screw the six figures, whatnot, right? Like if you own a nail salon, like even 10,000, right? Like 10,000, that's heavy enough. That makes you feel good. Now you can just go into work and you can just, get to work, upsell your shampoo without, feeling stressed out. Same thing with the construction, right? I know that's a lot heavier payment. So maybe 10,000 might be like a drop of rain, but like, you save up a few $100,000. Now you just have a little bit, right? Like a little bit for the bonds, a little bit, for
Well, now you
change
create
orders.
opportunity. That's actually
Now
what
you-
we talk about, right? Is like we try to hold cash on hand as much as possible in the Wealthfront so that we're available for opportunities when they present itself, right? We're
Yeah.
available to go capitalize on if we need to go make a big purchase, if we need to go hire somebody, we know that we're comfortable, right? Or worst case, if the business, whatever the case is, something happens, we have a savings account that's going to allow us to continue to operate while we can go solve. And that, dude, it's just been, I never really managed my money like this before. I don't really know many people who do. And I think it's just a really powerful strategy with exactly what you just said.
May I add to
Yeah, go ahead.
Derek, like when you talk to the contractors, right, about selling and stuff, just going back to like my last point, like, imagine, some of these contractors just have some money put away, right? Just enough to be like, okay, and now they're going out, with these homeowners and they don't have that stress of like, okay, like this project, three other bidders are already on it. I'm the third guy they're seeing or girl, and it's just like competitive. Now you just have a little bit of cushion. Now you're not like giving off that angst and
When it comes to sales.
right?
Yeah. That's a whole different conversation, different mindset, but you're totally right. When you have money saved in your account, you change from being desperate for a deal to, hey, I know what I'm doing and I'm here to help you. And if you want my help, amazing. And if not, that's totally fine. But here's what you'll get with me. You can make your decision, and that pullback right there will make people eager to work with you. But yeah, man, it's that's really the formula that you've put together that has been game changing for this company and for this business is daily cash flow report. Let's see how much we have on hand, starting small every payroll period, transferring just a little bit into the Wealthfront account. We get 4% APY, and then starting to up that as you continue to grow the business. And then when you do have some excess capital, just being disciplined enough to go throw that in there. The other thing that's really helped me a lot too is just having you in my accounts, right? Having somebody who's just seeing all my accounts, who like, we talked about this yesterday. AI will replace a lot of things, but it will be very difficult to replace the accountability that a team of humans provides each other. And that's really what you do is like, I know you're in my account, and I know if I go make a stupid purchase, I'm going to have to get a fucking text or a call about it. And I don't really
What
want
they
to hear
usually
that.
say, like, hey, I
Right?
think we got hit by fraud. And then,
Yeah, exactly. If I make a stupid purchase, he'll text me and be like, hey, I'm not sure if this $6,000 payment for your trip to Hawaii was fraud or not, but and I'm like, oh, I knew that was coming. And sometimes it just happens, right? Sometimes you work hard, and it's okay to
and
make
just
a good
and
purchase.
we're joking about that too, Derek, but to like add on that too, like, as an accountant, we also talked about like it's exhausting to micromanage. And so when I'm looking through the accounts, right, I'm sending the banking report, and for me to make, send the most accurate information, I just got to go log in every day and see what we have, right? And but all jokes aside, I'm not there to like lecture every transaction. It comes down to the behavior. And we could talk about transferring money to the savings and things like that all day, but it really goes back to that discipline, right? That's where I give Derek credit, like, and just your Haven all around, because I think the day that I see any type of fraud or embezzlement come through the cards will probably be like the day that, at least with this current staff, probably maybe the day that the world ends. And so, it just goes back to like the company culture and the discipline. We don't have very high margins, right? Like, we're probably closer to grocery store margins than, I don't know,
Yeah.
you name the industry that has super high margins.
Hey,
But
no,
no,
you're
it's
totally
just,
right. I mean, shit's
know,
expensive, right? And paying for people is
100%.
expensive, but it's just being disciplined with the cash that you do have. You're totally right, and you've really helped with that. And again, I think just subconsciously, more than anything, it's the accountability that having somebody like you on the team who can hold people accountable, even not without your words or even without micromanaging, just knowing that you're there, and then also the accountability of seeing that report. You know, I forget who said this, but some freaking influencer said this. Oh, I think it was Hormozy actually, where he said, if you really want to make more money or save more money, just open your bank account and look at it every day. Right? I mean, it's just a straight up scorecard. So we do that, but we just do it at a one higher level where not only are we looking at the actual balance, but again, it's that formula of here's what you have today, here's what's going out expense wise, here's your payroll, and then here's your incoming deposit. So here's really what you're going to have at the end of the week, and then just having that information, we can go make better decisions. We can go execute on what we need to execute on. And so it's that formula right there that has allowed us to do this, over $100,000 in freaking 12 months, 13 months, really. And then it just is continuing to grow,
Yeah, it's just,
and
it's that feeling too. Like, I'll work with some folks, and it's tough. And that's why I say, like, to stay in business, like that cash on hand, it's not to be rich now. Even nowadays, right? Everything's so expensive. Like, is the goal even to become rich? Like, you have 700K on hand, free cash flow. Not saying you're Haven, but just in general, it's like, what could you even go do after you go buy a nice house for yourself? And so at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to, being consistent. That consistency will really add up. The first time I opened up a money market, and it's not because of me, again, I'm out there not going to get the deals, but I cherish the deposits that come in. So I see those deposits come in, I think about, obviously all the team members that need to get paid. My first job, when I had this banking report with the savings, we had over 250 team members, in that hotel, a lot of families, a lot of wages, a lot going on, but still being able to grow that savings account to $18 million. 18 milli. Every interest payment that came in, and right, rates may vary. And we had, some other stuff going on, so they got a little bit of a higher rate. I won't say who it is, obviously, but $400,000 a month in interest, right? And so it's just, with that consistency, but we were only doing
that he's earning.
$50,000 transfers,
That he's earning with 18 million in that high yield savings account. He's earning $400,000 in interest, which is insane, right? Because that bank is going and taking that 18 million and hopefully making 9-10%, and then they're paying back that 4%. I mean, that's really how it works, right? That's the game of the banks. But yeah, maybe you could speak to that a little bit. So like as we're growing this Wealthfront account, what do you see as kind of the plan for it and what we do over the next 3 to 5 years? It was funny when we were at the Leanscaper People's Intensive last week, there was a lady who got on stage and she was talking about goal setting and setting really like a 3-year plan. Even a 3-year plan is hard, huh? I mean, time goes by so fast, but the world is changing at such a crazy pace. It's wild. So 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, like, yes, we have those big goals, but things change so quickly. We can try our best though. What do you feel like is a good 3-year plan that you would like to see happen with this? Like, and it doesn't even have to be exactly for your haven, but for maybe a company like this, what would the goal be as you build the Wealthfront account? And then what do you do next?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? And so obviously you can't just be like, money, increase money that's coming in, especially with someone like your Haven or a company like your Haven, right? It's very variable. What does that mean? Fixed is a set cost. Variable is a cost that increases with deposits, right? Or with revenue or just with the volume of something. And so when we look at, increased deposits for your Haven, we can't be naive and think, okay, we're going to have more labor, especially we look at our labor rate right now, which we won't give away numbers, but we need money for labor. We need, so it's going to be as the deposits grow, just continue to grow that wealth front, but at the same time, really scaling that wealth front account as an emergency fund for your Haven, first and foremost. And I have a number in mind for that, at least for right now. And then anything really above that amount would be ready to take that next step, right? Whether it's going to maybe buy some land, making an investment, maybe put that money in the SPY index, depending on the person, right? Hey, Mike, I don't want to go buy.
Why would you do that rather than just keep it in the Wealthfront at 3 or 4%?
You talk about the SPY.
Well, SPY or buying another asset, like why would you go do that rather than just keeping it in the Wealthfront?
Yeah, it's unfortunate nowadays, especially too with how high inflation is. And so the money market accounts, what we call like those high yield savings or the wealth front, to go buy land or the SPY, you just have a better chance of a higher return, right? So we're getting over that 3 to 4% return. What's nice about that savings is it's liquid cash. So if you need to transfer, right, you don't have to go sell a house. You don't have to go sell land. You don't have to go sell an ice cream shop. You don't have to go sell your stock in the SPY index, for capital gains and whatnot, right? So you can just pull that money out. That's what's really nice about it. But at the same time, once you get an excess amount of cash on hand, you want to be able to go invest that and get a greater return. And so like that SPY index, when I say SPY index, a lot of these big funds out there, they have what they call a SPY index. It's the S&P 500, and it's traded off their basis points, whether they go up or down. So you're just basically investing your money with the biggest 500 companies in the world, right? And so you're parking your cash there, or maybe you go buy some real estate, Henderson, Nevada, right? I feel like that's where I grew up. It's always been a growing, city there for real estate. And it's like, hey, there's this area over here where they haven't built a school yet and things like that. I think that if we park our money in this house, it will appreciate, more. And so long answer.
No, it's good. It's good. You really said the right answer that I was looking for, which is you're just going to get a higher return than you would get in that 3 to 4%. Maybe you're getting an 8 to 10% return. And I think that's the important thing to recognize is that there is no fast way to go make a fuckload of money. There's no like trying to go do a quick couple flips, right? Trying to go do a couple quick flips, trying to do these things that like where you can get money fast. It's really not the way to get wealthy. The way to get wealthy is to continue just leveling up a little bit and then just seeing it compound over time, right? Like what we've talked about. We have the fundamentals for running a business down pretty well. Who knows what can happen in 5 to 10 years? But for now, like if we just continued going and we just continued feeding this Wealthfront account and we got it to us, maybe we get it up to $1 million and then we go take 500,000 and go buy a piece of real estate that pays us some cash flow and grows at 7 to 8%, or go put it in the SPY and now we're getting, 8% on that. And then maybe we go buy another business and implement our fundamentals there. And now we have two businesses feeding the Wealthfront account that we then go and purchase more. And that's literally how you create the empire. It's slow, it's disciplined, it's consistent, and it's crazy what happens over time. I mean, literally just from this year, I don't, and there's guys who are crushing it out there. So kudos to them. But this pod is just for, I'm just a regular guy. You're just a regular guy. I'm not looking to, yes, it's cool to talk shit and say, I want to go be a billionaire and all this. And, it can happen when you are very disciplined and you just never stop. But I don't really know too many people who've been able to save that much money over such a short amount of time by just being really disciplined. And if you can do it here and then go do it in a few other spots, like how quickly that compounds is unbelievable, and that's where the real wealth is made. And I think it's important to recognize that it's a slow process. It's a disciplined process. It's just like working out and taking care of yourself, right? At first, it really sucks ass. But if you do it for years on end and you stay focused and you continue to eat right and just continue to hit the gym and show up every single day, you start getting the results you want.
Yeah, and it's really like going back to as well, you're taking care of the deposits that you're earning, especially for my construction folks, man. Like it is tough out there. And so what you're really doing, like, especially when you're out there, giving estimates out, you're walking the property, maybe this person has an attitude or this person doesn't quite want to go with the price, but you felt like you built all the value. Like life is tough out there, right? And so what it really comes down to is that deposit is that confirmation that, hey, I trust you, we're going to do something big. And now you're treating that deposit, and how you treat your spending is like your diet, right? So like imagine going and running a marathon or doing marathon training or going to the gym and stuff, and you just go home and you have a really bad diet. Imagine like working that hard to get those deposits, no matter what industry you're in, right? And then you just really, misspend it. And that's just having that bad diet. And it's tough. And I get it, right? Especially with the highs of like getting a new customer or maybe getting a new deposit at an amount that you just haven't had yet, right? And we're all normal and subject to mistakes. But at the end of the day, with majority of your deposits, you take them, that hard-earned work of your staff, of yourself, and then you're treating it well in your bank account. And then if lucky enough, it will just get filtered to that savings. And now you're building, now you just a little bit less stressed. And a lot of times too, when I hear people, I'll talk to, clients here, or potential clients or just people in general. And, the $100 million, I want my company to be $100 million. That's like the most popular thing I've ever heard. Like if I was to have, accounting sales meetings with 20 people, at least 15 of them are saying, I want to build my company to 100 million. But what I really hear from that is I just want to make it so bad. And I just want to relax. Like, I just want to feel a little bit like less stress. And to be honest, it's not the 100 million that's going to make you feel the less stressed. It's going to be that first 100K. And it's not like, hey, you're ready to retire and go in the sunset and quit what you're doing, but you're just able to take a breath. And even at that point, you might think like, dang, I don't even actually care about selling for 100 million. I just needed 100K first. And now I feel a little bit chilled out. I still want to keep going, but well,
it's like, the confidence is built off of the results. The success leaves clues. And so you prove to yourself when you hit that 100K in the account that, oh, I could do this. Now we just go do it again. And you just stay disciplined and you just keep going. Let me ask you this, because you have other clients as well. When do you suggest that somebody starts a Wealthfront or a savings account? Should everybody go do it right away? Or is there a certain time when you should start? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, like, oh man, I want to say his name so bad. I mean, someone that we know, obviously, but he's in that like beginning your Haven stage, and I'm really excited for him. But like when I think about him, like, yeah, like I would say just having a savings account available, that way you can separate out, any just separate out your business checking with the savings, but it doesn't have to be necessarily excess money that's going to your savings right away. You could just do the little like payroll, hey, biweekly when I pay payroll, I'm just going to transfer $500 or $200 or $1,000 or
Do you think no matter
3,000.
what, everyone should do that? Or should they is there a certain place that they need to get to first?
I mean, they can honestly do it as early as they want, but you just got to understand you want to keep enough money in your business checking so that you can operate your company, and it helps keep
Really
your
what I
life.
was trying to get you to too was servicing your debt, right? Because a lot of guys are taking loans. A lot of guys are, I think it's important to get that clear first, right? And
Yeah.
then start funneling, pay off the debt and
Yeah, no,
shred it
that's a
as
great.
quickly as possible.
No, yeah, and I'm sorry, Derek, I cut you off there.
No, it's all good. I mean, I was trying to lead you to that answer. I agree with you though.
No,
I
but
think
if
they
I
need
if I
it.
could add on that now that you just
Yeah,
specified it, I think you're totally right. Like, and what it means by servicing the debt, like, do you have to have your $700,000 loan paid off like today before you start transfer $500 over? Absolutely not. But what I would look at is whatever those monthly term payments are, and especially how nasty that interest is, because it's just getting crazy nowadays, folks. Like, I just got to admit, I mean, you see it all the time now. Every website, anyone who has a little bit cash on hand, they're issuing out loans now. But depending on the interest rate, if it's a lower interest rate, but you have a balance and you can make that monthly payment, go ahead and open up the savings. But if you're really kind of getting killed by like every month by a monthly payment, it's a lot of interest. Like, I would focus on paying that down first. And so, no, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. And so I hope that
yeah,
brings a little bit of clarity.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think getting your debt serviced and trying to get that paid off as much as possible um, is key because that will really squander your ability to grow the wealth. It really will. And I'm not wealthy by any
No,
means, right? I could live for a
no,
couple of
like,
months, you know, and then we'd be done. But we do have the discipline, we do have the fundamentals, and that's why I was excited to talk about this. And I think that we should continue doing more of this because the conversations we have is why we got to where we're at, and I think that's could be really beneficial for so many other folks. And whether 10 people listen to this or thousands of people listen to this, if it can help one person maybe set up that initial daily cash report, go tell your bookkeeper, go tell your your accountant or your CFO or whoever you have to start setting that up. And then setting up that Wealthfront account or money market account or high yield savings account, and just starting slow, and seeing how it compounds. Because then you can really start seeing, when you really start looking broadly, you can really start seeing how the game is really played, and that's how it's played. It's really what it is.
yeah. And like, who's just tired of, like, I've been there pulling over side of the parking lot, this person's asking for payment and you're like just praying to God while you're in the middle of a Circle K. And it's just like, you're praying to God as you log into Wells Fargo, like, please just have that money in there. Or
Yeah.
like, did this payment clear? And really just having that type of organization, especially every morning. And again, this isn't like, I send this to Derek and he's reading it for 15 hours and, putting analysis and doing graphs and crazy stuff like that. I'm sure you probably look at it for less than like a minute. I mean, I'm
No,
willing to
that's
guess.
it. No, truly, yeah. I mean, it's just the consistency of it. And again, it's just getting that into your subconscious mind of where you're at, and it'll greatly help you make better decisions. And that actually makes me think about what we're doing now, which we just recently started, is we're inviting our operations manager, Bailey, into our budget meetings, which is really
Should we
exciting.
talk about budgets real quick?
Yeah, we can talk. Yeah, that's
Keep
good.
going.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
mean,
No, it's good. Yeah, I
no,
just,
no,
I heard budget. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
cool. Here's
yeah.
a.
I think just being able to provide your team with that same information in the best way, and they don't need to know, I think it's important that they don't need to know the actual number in the accounts, right? But I think them understanding a budget and knowing what we're budgeting out for this month for them to be able to spend will help them make better decisions as well. The way that I've really set up this company is where I'm doing my best to really not get in anyone's role and let them just go own it themselves. That means they have the ability to hire, they have the ability to fire. We've given them cards, they have the ability to spend. But in order to make sure that they're spending correctly and following the same values we have, we set up this monthly budget meeting where we show them, hey, this is what we've allocated for this month. This is the deposits that we need to go get this month, and we share that with our sales team. This is the amount that we need to go hit. This is our goal. And then this is our expenses. So this is our payroll, our bonuses, our office expenses, our flight, meals, and airfare, or I said flights, but Ubers, here's our software expenses. And then here's like our, for our wealth front and all the rest of the application expenses or whatever else we have. Here's a budget number next to all of these so that they have it subconsciously, so they can make better decisions about how to operate the business as well. And I think that's a huge thing that's really been beneficial, is kind of letting some more folks in on that, so that, again, they follow the same values that we have, and we still keep everything tight. We're not trying to cut spending, right? We always talk about that. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit too, because you say it really well. It's just healthy spending to grow the business. If we're spending to grow the business, okay, let's go do it, because we got to spend. You can't be afraid to spend. You can't be afraid to take risks. If you're not growing, you're dying. So it's go time every single day. But you have to be spending in a healthy way. So if it doesn't help grow the business, or it doesn't help get you to the vision of the company or closer towards that vision or that goal, then it shouldn't be spent.
Yeah, absolutely right. If it, looking at every transaction, leaving the business ledger, if it doesn't go towards sustaining your company or growing it, you have to ask yourself, why is it leaving the business ledger? And you got to think about the times you're watching The Sopranos, right? And you're like, mafia, like whether it's $5 or $5,000, this does not serve the purpose. And I say mafia jokingly, right? But like, you just have to, it's the principle. It's not about the dollar amount, right? And so, having that discipline, like Derek was talking about, the consistency, and, speaking a little bit to our budget meetings as well, especially being on accrual basis, we're really able to capture just the cash in, cash out activity for that month. And, we call it a budget meeting, right? But you quickly find out, you're probably, before you enter the meeting, oh, we're about to talk about dollars and this and that, but it quickly turns into an operations meeting. Every line item we hit, no matter if it's shipping and postage account for $40, or if it's design general labor for $50 trillion, it's like we're every line stopping there, because it's not about the amount, it's about what's going on and, how is this working inside. No, go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, maybe you can actually talk about that and explain that a little bit. How do we set up the budget? How do you set up that budget for our budget meeting? Because you set up the budgets. We do it once a month in the beginning of the month. What is it, like the 5th of the month or something like that? You set it up, me, Bailey, and you go in, and you have it set up just an Excel sheet. Column A is every single category of expenses, and really broken down into almost every expense that we had, and then the dollar amount. But how did you get there when you first set up a budget? Like, how do you do that?
No, that's a great question. And really, this just goes back to the fundamentals of your accounting, having your books done right. And so let's say you have a set of QuickBooks, that's all you need. So now we're just looking at the income statement, where they have all of those accounts on the income statement. A lot of times on your income statement, you're going to have your cash in, cash out activity. You may have some accounts on the balance sheet like loans and things, or owner draws, that you'll want to account for as well, but may just be a few accounts. But you're really just taking any accounts that have cash affected, whether it's deposits going in or payments going out. Any accounts that hold those payments we'll want to have on that. And how we set it up is we'll have our deposits in the top row, and we have the deposits broken out by each product. That way we can go over each line item, because each product is a different story, so we're able to really dissect our deposits, the money going in, and then we go over our bonus and labor as one section. We have our like travel and entertainment as another section. We have like office supplies and admin as another section. And I think we may have one more that I'm missing. But really just, now tracking the money going out and the
marketing expenses. Basically we just looked at, okay, what did we spend last month? And And then for this budget this month, we can really actually just take those numbers and dial it all in and then go through each of them and make adjustments. Like
Yeah,
we
especially for
bought
like that
in
variable.
March, we bought $25,000 worth of computers. We don't need to go do that again, but we know at some point we will. And so we can leave that item there, but this month it's going to be zero because we don't need to buy computers. Or we know, hey, we're hiring 3 more people this month. This is going to be within the budget, and then
Yeah.
that way the goal is to really be zeroed out. So we have all our payments in there. We have my payments in there. We have our rent, office rent in there. We have our wealth front payments in there. And so really the goal is really to be zeroed out by where is every single dollar going? And any excess straight to the savings.
Yeah, and like we look at like last month in May, right? And we talk about this too. Like this is why, this isn't like life-saving stuff, but it's easy to get jammed up, right? Like knowing which months you'll have 3 payroll cycles, right? If you're on bi-weekly payroll, there's gonna be 2 months out of the year we have 3 payrolls leave, right?
Yes.
And so it's like knowing which months those are. So last month for May, that was our 3, payroll cycle month. And it wasn't like, oh my gosh, the sky's falling, but just being super on top of it, as we're going throughout the month. And then actually, as we start getting towards the end of the month, we were in good shape. And then, we just kind of ease off like, all right, everything looks good. We have a week left. Like, let's get these last payments out. And then we'll start with June.
No, you're so right. Because we recognize, okay, we have 3 payrolls this month. We need to, maybe we decrease our travel a little bit. Maybe we wait to buy these computers. Obviously if we need to go spend to go operate and serve our customers, we go do that. But just having that in the back of our mind, there's things that we can say no to that maybe can wait till next month. Going and buying new hats or new shirts or maybe charity or sponsorships or advertisements or things like that. Like we can wait because we know this month we have 3 payrolls. So just having that information is incredibly important. And really that's what you provide. Which I think, having that budget meeting every single month is very, very, very beneficial. And it doesn't have to be rocket science at all, right? I think that's what kind of makes people nervous. I think when I was younger and I had the other companies, like a lot of that kind of made me nervous and I didn't want to think about it because it seemed like a lot, but it's actually really not, You just need to hire a guy like Blue Raven, like Mike, who can handle it for you. I think that's actually the biggest piece of building a team is just hiring the right people who you can trust and just say, hey, you just go do your job. And when you need an answer to a question or, you need some vision or we need to make an adjustment, we can communicate together. But other than that, dude, just go do it. Just go.
Yeah, and most importantly too, Derek, like someone that's gonna just be there with you through it, like with your Haven, with my other clients as well. Like it's not always perfect, and I've been through a lot in accounting, and so I'm always up for a nice, just something to work through,
and challenge.
Yeah, and it is what
It really
is,
is
right?
a game. It really is a game.
Yeah, and like I'm not even perfect either, right? Like I'm not on this podcast saying like, take my words and things like that. Everybody has their own style. I think if there's anything just to take away from today's discussion, it's really just that discipline, right? Like going back to that Shark Tank statistics, like you may have competition out there, especially on the new build side. How easy is this for this to happen? But you might have like your competition where they're really good at the projects and like top notch, but like if they're not handling their finances, like American Eagle jeans, they've been around forever. And then they go viral with a commercial after 40 years of just being smart with their money, just being smart, being patient, just a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. 40 years later, bang, printing money from selling jeans now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's just, but I think too, like, it just comes down to like how bad you want it as well. Whatever your goal is, you just want to say, right? Like, even if you want to be worth 100 million, I'm not here to like make fun of you or anything like that. And, it's very serious. And I want everybody to go achieve their goals. I think you just got to ask yourself like, hey, what is my goal? And every decision that you make within your company, you got to ask yourself, right? Just like with the spending, is it sustaining my company or is it growing it? You have to ask yourself every decision you make. You want to be a 100 millionaire? Is this decision that I make today gonna get me closer to becoming a 100 millionaire? Oh, I want to be on the Forbes magazine. Awesome. Is the decisions today that you're making gonna get you closer to being on the cover of Forbes? Guess who's just on the cover of Forbes? Derek Stevens, man. I started working with accounting for him. Obviously, he made it by the time I started working for him. but he was not, up to that Forbes caliber quite yet. Just kept going, kept going. People look at him too, I don't know, not that you have to like look him up or anything, but you might think like, oh, this guy parties a lot and he's really outgoing and stuff. He's probably like crazy with his bank, but you go look at his bank account, it's just like the craziest discipline you can ever imagine. And but yeah, man.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the way that we've done it. Your budget meeting once a month, just looking at all your previous month expenses, setting that budget, bringing in your guys over time, right? We didn't bring in Bailey for a long time, but it was time for that as he's taken on more responsibility, really managing. Yeah.
To that point, the budget, especially if you have variable sales, like it's one thing if you own like a apartment complex or maybe a commercial, you have like 4 tenants and they all pay 5,000, like you're just set to make that set amount. If you are able to make as many sales as possible, I am not saying to treat the budget like your Bible. Go take risks. Go, but as long as you just know where you're at and you can afford that risk, even though you'll be over budget, right? Like if we just listen to the budget every month, like we wouldn't have hired any of the team. There would be no Bailey, there'd be no Scott, there'd be no Zen, there'd be no anybody, because it's like, well, the budget says we're going to be over budget, so we just need to hold off. Like, no, man, like, sorry to cut you off, Derek, but you were making
no, you're right.
Wanted to add that as well. Yeah.
No, you're totally right.
Now you become gun shy,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where our relationship is really good, right? Because you hold me accountable, you pull back a little bit, you're kind of questioning some of the decisions when I bring an opportunity or bring something I'm like, hey, we should potentially go do this. You're like, is this the right? Let's talk through it. And sometimes I just have to make the decision, but at other times I will say, yeah, you're right. We can wait. So it's important to have both perspectives. You have to have somebody who's aggressive and you have to have somebody who's going to kind of hold you accountable. And then, lastly, like we talked about a lot on this is setting up your high yield savings account, setting up recurring payments on your payroll days, starting slow and low. And then, I think implementing the best thing you could possibly do is implementing the daily cash report in order to just keep you accountable and really keep you aware. It's really about awareness more than anything else. So you never get caught slipping, because business is like that. You can have one bad moment that can take your ass out if you're not aware and if you're not on top of your shit. And that's what the daily cash report provides is just that awareness so that you can make good decisions. But yeah, dude, we'll do it again. This was good. I mean, it's the first time we did a pod together, so it might have been a little sporadic, but I think there's a lot of good information in there. And, I think just the more we keep it simple, and, our goal is really just to help other folks. I mean, with Your Haven, the goal is to just serve contractors and help them win. And this isn't a place that I'm an absolute expert in. Michael's the expert. And so I wanted to bring you on so that you can just kind of share some of the things that we're doing that maybe other people can take from.
No, I appreciate it, Derek. And shout out to the Your Haven team, and great staff, by the way, if anyone's never met the Your Haven team. Unfortunately, I get to talk to them about like the boring accounting stuff. So I can only imagine how awesome they are to work with, with awesome designs and cool projects. And yeah, anybody out there looking for accounting help or any information too, feel free to, email me, admin@blueravenaccounting.com, and can get you clarification too. And so,
yeah, I think it's honestly one of the most important hires. It's an expense monthly that will save you huge in the long run. And so if you're looking for somebody, I'd highly suggest Mike, Blue Raven. I'll put all the contact info in the description of the pod. I'll throw this up on YouTube too. And so in the YouTube description, we'll have it in there. But go reach out, at least have a conversation, you'll do a discovery call and just kind of, see if it makes sense for you. But yeah, dude. Appreciate
God bless, man. Shout out to Your Haven. Thank you guys so much.
You're the man. Later.